Hey everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive into all the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. Welcome back. We have another amazing show for you this week, filled with titles newly from theaters, stuff from some of our favorite boutique labels like Radiance Films, Altered Innocence, Kino Lorber. Got some major catalog titles coming to 4K. A lot of really great stuff I'm going to dive into. As always, this will be tried to be more of a broad overview of these titles. But if you need a little bit more in depth, I will be doing a written review of most of these titles on GeekVibesNation.com. So make sure to check that space out in the weeks following this release if you want more of an in-depth analysis of some of these. But first, I'll just dig into. I'll start off with one of the bigger titles of the summer. It is from Disney and Marvel. It is the 4K debut of the Fantastic Four First Steps. Now, I want to start off by saying some of you may be jealous of my slipcover. Just know, I know a lot of people have been having trouble finding this. They've been shipping these out without slipcovers. I found mine at Walmart. So if you're a slipcover enthusiast, check Walmart if you did not get one. But for the release itself, the Fantastic Four, I've been a little bit up and down on the MCU, probably post-Endgame. There's been some good things here and there, and I really like Thunderbolts from a few months ago whenever I checked it out. But in terms of Fantastic Four, I wasn't too enthused by the idea of it going into it. But it ended up being better than I expected it to be. It's a pretty solid entry into the MCU, just going back and having that retro futuristic 60s aesthetic, I think really helped kind of shake things up stylistically. And I really like the focus on family and those themes that were explored in this version. I know the Fantastic Four, they've had multiple big screen adaptations in the past, including the 2000s versions, which I saw in theaters back at the time. And I remember liking okay, and I'm not sure if I ever saw the 2015 version or so. But coming to this one and just kind of judging it on its own, it does have kind of a little bit of a slightness to it. It doesn't feel as grandiose as other MCU offerings, but I kind of like that it's a little bit scaled down to bring it to a more personal level. The villains aren't like the most impressive, but I do like the character development with the characters and stuff. And I'll be interested to see how these characters fit into the larger story moving forward, because I know they were positioned as a very important part of the MCU. But I overall I liked it, not quite as much as Thunderbolts, but it's getting me on the right track, trending upwards for the MCU. This 4K release is really wonderful. It's presented in Dolby Vision with Dolby Atmos audio. The Dolby Vision looks great. It's a brand new movie with a really bright aesthetic, and it looks very colorful and deep hues and no black crush or banding or anything like that. Everything looks pretty amazing in terms of the Dolby Atmos audio. That's pretty powerful and immersive, and gives the overhead channels a nice workout. But it's really expansive and immersive, and I think that Atmos track does a really, really nice job. You get some special features included here, including a commentary track, deleted scenes, some featurettes, and a gag reel. So, pretty solid package for the Fantastic Four First Steps from Disney. If you're a fan of the MCU, you'll probably already have this in your collection, but if you haven't yet, if you've been kind of more iffy on the MCU, make sure to check this out. Pretty decent entry, not the best movie of the summer, but perfectly solid and fun entertainment for the family. But next, what I want to get into is a pretty major release celebrating the 40th anniversary of one of the best trilogies of all time from Universal. I have a set that'll take me a little bit to get through because there's a lot to get through. The 40th anniversary collector's gift set of Back to the Future. I will put this down so you can actually hear my voice. So this is a pretty big set that I believe was available exclusively through Amazon. And this is yet another release of Back to the Future on 4K. It seems like every 5 years when there's a new anniversary, Universal will do something for it. Here's a nice replica license plate. And so we first got Back to the Future on 4K 5 years ago for the 35th anniversary. And we now find ourselves getting this 40th anniversary with a new disc full of special features and just kind of recycling those older discs for the 4K releases and giving us some options such as this gift set to kind of get some like trinkets and stuff if you choose to go that way. So you get this big envelope kind of with replica stuff in here that I'll kind of show off as quickly as possible. So you got a replica of a letter here that I'll show off. This is pretty nice, like stock. It's not really flimsy or anything. It's really thick. You can see that letter from Marty to Doc. And then you got a lot of interesting like posters and newspaper clips and stuff that are from the film. Here's a photo of Marty's parents, nothing on the back. Another kind of postcard-esque thing here. Got a movie poster for Jaws 19 from old Max Spielberg, as seen in the second movie. And then a book jacket here for George's book. We got two versions of the newspaper depending on what side you want. So got the youth jailed version here and then gang jailed here. And got the little drawings here with the flux capacitor and all the calculations. Got another, drop some stuff, little bit here. Got a Western Union letter. There's 3 pages to this here. And finally signed here at the end. You have a ticket here and some currency here and a tardy slip here. And I think that's all of kind of the little knickknacks, unless I dropped something and did not pick them up. But I think that's about everything that's in that particular little slot. But there are even more aspects to this gift set here. Did I not get something out of here? Here. Got a holographic thing where you can make some people disappear. So yeah, lots of stuff in this kind of, luckily they contained it into this kind of little package so you won't lose much. You got a certificate of authenticity here. So they only made 5,585 of these. So that leads me to say, like, this might be hard to find at this point. I think I mentioned that I believe this is available exclusively at Amazon. But if you're interested in this, make sure to kind of seek this out as soon as possible. This is a replica guitar, like a miniature guitar. So here's a little stand here. And I've removed some of the safety like stuff that this ships with, but I still wanted to keep this guitar in here for safety. But there's a little replica guitar here. It's pretty cool, but I'd keep it in here just to make sure it stays safe and doesn't get broken, even though it is in a pretty secure cardboard package here, the replica case, which is pretty cool. You have a little thing for your license plate here. You have what I think is very cool addition, a nice thick booklet here that you can kind of get some more insights and cool photos and reproductions and sketches and stuff. So lots of cool stuff in there. So with all of this cool stuff that's in this collector's edition that I just showed off, all that is really incredible for fans. And I think it might be a little bit pricey, but if you're a hardcore fan, I think that there's a lot of stuff in there that I think you would like to have on your shelf. The one thing that drags this particular set down, and it's hard for me to recover from personally, is the discs themselves are in this steel book, which I'm not against steel books. I show them off all the time. What I am against is how this is produced, and there are stacked discs. There are 4 discs on each hub here, and 4K discs are so sensitive that I just think this is my personal nightmare, to have all of these 4K discs stacked on top of one another. And since there's not a lot of leeway to kind of like, there are 3 4K discs we're working with, so there's no way to have them in a secure position where like all of them are not rubbing against at least something. So that itself, I'm not going to take all these out because I have something else to show you. Stacked disc in this case, I think, is the one thing that just makes me kind of cringe at this set, because it's so like thought out, and there's a lot of really creative things for people to seek out, that just them kind of fumbling right on like the 2-yard line is ridiculous. But with all that said and shown off, that is not the only version. If you don't care about all the little trinkets and everything, because there is a new standard version that should not be very difficult to seek out. It should be widely available. But that is one that I also got my hands on. And that is just a nice, complete, compact set here with each film in its own case. Each disc has its own hub. I'll kind of show these off quickly, but you have some almost original artwork for all of these things, which I think is really great. So you got the 4K disc and Blu-ray disc and the new bonus disc here in the first set. So there's 3 discs in there, and then the second here, you got just the 4K and Blu-ray disc here. So no stacked disc on in any of these cases of the standard set. And then Back to the Future 3 here is another 3 hub set where you got the 4K disc, Blu-ray of the 3rd movie, and the original bonus disc from the 35th anniversary edition. So there are 2 bonus discs dedicated to special features. Each film is given a 4K disc and a Blu-ray counterpart, and those also are loaded with special features. So there's like more special features than you can shake a stick at, and there's tons of stuff on here. But in terms of if you have the previous 4K set, is it worth upgrading? For the bonus disc, I'll just kind of list some of what we have that is new to this release. So you have a 40th anniversary retrospective with some of the producers and craftspeople. You have a location, like now and then location scouting type deal. You have a panel from the Turner TCM Festival, and a few other kind of minor featurettes. So there are some cool interviews and stuff on here, but they are not really with the main people like Michael J. Fox or Christopher Lloyd or anything. But they are so well covered on the original release that I kind of understand that. And Universal is getting to a point where they're gonna start running out of new things to add to these releases. I'm sure they'll keep trying because it's a popular franchise and they'll try to milk it as long as possible. But for fans, unless you're just someone who needs to devour any little morsel they can get their hands on, if you have the previous release, you're probably set, unless you want to get the new one with all the trinkets and stuff, or that original 4K release. If you got it like day one, that had their disc in cardboard sleeves, was once again is a big no-no for 4K discs that can be easily scratched. So having this new 40th anniversary standard set is my platonic ideal of just every disc having its rightful place. But you also get the new special features and stuff. There's also a piece on like the guitar that can get a little bit of history on that. If you want a cheaper way than getting just this whole new standard set for the bonus disc, I think for the first time on 4K, each of these movies have been individually released as steelbooks on 4K. So you don't, if you only care about like the first two movies, you can now buy those separately and not worry about the third one. I think that's kind of sacrilegious, but you do you. But if you want a cheaper way to get the bonuses, I believe the cheapest way would be to just get the 4K steelbook of the first movie. That is the one with the new bonus disc that has been created for the 40th anniversary. So if you have that original set and you're looking for a way to get the bonus disc as cheaply as possible, just get the 4K of the first movie and you'll be set because that disc is in there. But this is one of my favorite trilogies of all time. It is a classic that I've rewatched time and time again, and it's always such a blast. It's just great sci-fi blockbuster filmmaking, and it's just, I love it so much. So if you love it like I do and you're a big fan of the franchise, the 40th anniversary, it's going strong. They've been showing them in movie theaters and stuff and everything, but for their physical media releases, there's a lot of good options. There's the decked out Amazon set. There's the kind of shelf-friendly, disc-friendly standard set. No matter what you choose, there's a lot of great Back to the Future content going on right now. So make sure to add it to your shelf if you're a fan, because there's definitely some entertaining morsels to dig into. Next up, we have one of the more hot button issued movies of the summer. We have the highly anticipated Ari Aster follow-up to Beau is Afraid from A24. We have Eddington, which was a movie that I was very interested in, but also kind of dreading. If you watched my show last week, you'll know that I talked about the slasher film Sick, which took place during like the pandemic COVID-19 era. And I'm not really a big fan of movies that take place during that time. So, of course, Ari Aster had to make an entire movie about like the COVID-19 pandemic and the response. And he got a great cast led by Joaquin Phoenix. We got Pedro Pascal. We got Austin Butler. We got Emma Stone. We've got a lot of really good people in here. And he managed to do so in a way that did not make me completely put off and just kind of like just miserable. It ended up being very entertaining. It does take you back to those like especially early days of the pandemic where like people were like commenting on people like having their mask hanging off their nose and stuff, and just like they're 6 feet and everything, which I'm definitely on the side of like pro masking, but just seeing that depicted on screen and just kind of feeling that kind of visceral like memory come flooding back. But it was really fascinating because luckily Ari Aster does not solely build a movie only on that. It's more so him using that backdrop to confront how Americans responded to that, how social media and the news media landscape influenced kind of like conspiracy theories and all kinds of just kind of weird avenues of thinking that really flourished and made people kind of very divided. And it's handled like with a degree of entertainment that keeps you engaged, but there's a little bit of thought behind it that does kind of it's very, a lot of times, very obvious in what it's doing, but I think for a kind of mass consumption, I think it kind of satirizes a lot of what was going on and heightens it in a way that no one feels like especially demonized, but each side can kind of like point at it and kind of find fault and stuff. And I think it's kind of evenly handled and entertaining in totality. Even if it did make me uncomfortable in certain points, I think that's kind of par for the course for the subject and kind of the point. I did end up really quite enjoying this. Joaquin Phoenix is as incredible as ever. I was sad that Emma Stone especially didn't have a bigger role, and Austin Butler kind of similarly. But I like the twists and turns that this movie takes, and it ended up being quite an entertaining ride, despite kind of the total discomfort of the subject. But this is a 4K release from A24. It is provided in Dolby Vision with Dolby Atmos audio. This looks really, really great. There are really strong black levels and in the nighttime scenes that helps alleviate some of the banding that may have popped up in some of the streaming versions I've seen of this movie. The Dolby Atmos is not the most like it is immersive, but it's not kind of throttling you with overhead activity. It kind of complements the larger landscape in a really gentle way that kind of makes sense for the soundscape. But whenever things start kind of perking up or like there's gunshots and stuff, things definitely make an impact when it needs to. There's not much away in the special features. You get a 33-minute making of documentary, which is very interesting. I wish there was a little bit more, but overall it's a pretty good supplement. But if you're a fan of Ari Aster, this is different from kind of like the more horrific stuff that he started out with, like Hereditary or Midsommar. But it's definitely more accessible than Beau is Afraid, and I think overall it is worth checking out. It's a wild movie, but definitely worth checking out if you're interested in his work or something a little bit more provocative that deals with political stuff, but it's not alienating to particular sides. My next movie is one of the most successful horror movies of the year. It is from Warner Brothers, and from Zach Kreger. It is Weapons on 4K Ultra HD. And in this movie, I won't go too deeply into it because I don't want to give any spoilers or anything. But it starts out, it's a classroom full of children. One night, all but one student completely disappear. They all kind of like 30-ish students run out of their houses like at 2 a.m, and they are never seen again. They are just kind of go out into the night and no one knows where they went. And all eyes are kind of looking at the teacher, who's kind of newer to town, and played by Julia Garner. And she's really great. She has a little bit of like baggage to her. But this movie takes you kind of like, it follows a couple of central characters, and they kind of get a little bit of each of their perspective as it builds up to figure out what happened to these kids, what is actually went on during this night, and why haven't they been found after all this time. And the way it is handled is really effective. There are some very horrific moments, but it doesn't rely on cheap jump scares, and I like how it builds to a really interesting reveal. And it does give you a really satisfying payoff, but there is a really grounded kind of character-based approach to this movie that gives you a lot of kind of actual meat to the story that I think really helps it along. So you got people, in addition to Julia Garner, Josh Brolin and Austin Abrams, and a lot of really interesting character actors putting in good work. If you've avoided seeing certain key characters on social media, congratulations. You'll have a treat getting introduced to them in this movie. But even knowing a little bit about what was going on, I still had a blast, and I look forward to rewatching this. Zach Kreger, he's 2 for 2 with his horror movies between this and Barbarian, which I do hope gets a physical media release at some point. But Weapons, very fun time at the movies, and glad to have this on 4K because this is a really excellent 4K release. Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos audio. A lot of dark scenes in this one and shadowy like house stuff going on. So deep black levels are essential, and they are executed very well. The Dolby Atmos, supremely effective. A lot of engagement in the height channels. Everything works very, very well. In terms of special features, nothing too crazy. There's like 3 featurettes, very brief. Wish there's a little bit more to that, but overall, really great package for one of the better horror movies of the year. Had a lot of fun with this, and I think very accessible, very fun, and Weapons is a good movie. Sticking with Warner Brothers, but going for something completely different, I have a complete series set of Adult Swim's Robot Chicken. This is a series that's been on forever. I started collecting the DVDs back in the day, and I got the first couple on DVD, and then I kind of fell off for a little while, and then I got seasons 5 and 6 on Blu-ray, which I believe were the only 2 seasons that they released on Blu-ray. And so now I'm kind of finally filling in like all of my collection with this DVD release, which does include all 11 seasons, 228 episodes, and some various specials and stuff. So you got like season 1 and 2 specials disc over here, and then you go like season 2, 3, all the way to 11 at the end. These are each stacked with 2 discs on each hub. I hate stacked discs. They're a little bit more acceptable for DVDs. They're a little bit more resilient, but I still don't like this packaging, and I wish every disc could just have its own hub. But that is not the case. I also wish this was a complete Blu-ray release, but just having everything in one package is pretty great. And they've done a nice job of including everything to date that's been released. Like even on the specials disc, there is a I think it's called like the self-reflection or self-healing special that just aired a couple of months ago in July that is included in this release. So they are continuing to do new specials for this. I'm not sure how they're going to handle releasing that on physical media in the future. But for now, I believe this is pretty much everything that Robot Chicken has done so far, including like the Star Wars specials and DC specials and stuff like that. For those who don't know, this is it's a sketch comedy show that is primarily done through like stop motion animation. There's often using pop culture figures or references and stuff like Jason Voorhees or He-Man or stuff like that to make very vulgar, sometimes very inappropriate jokes that can be very funny, can be a little bit offensive, but usually they are at least entertaining. It's one of the creators is Seth Green, who people probably know best from like Family Guy or Austin Powers. But the creativity put into the show, they're all kind of this Adult Swim show that it aired in their 15-minute slot. So it's about, each episode's about 12 minutes long. So even if you're not enjoying like a particular episode, it's not a huge investment of your time. Maybe just kind of binge 2 or 3, take a break, come back another day or whatever. But overall, fun show, and I'm glad to have everything in one collection finally. You do get some special features on here, like various featurettes and stuff, and overall, like everything that was on the original DVD releases have been carried over. These have just been reskinned for this complete series set. Warner Brothers has done a nice job with this. So if you're an Adult Swim fan, you get a nice kind of compact package here for fans. So make sure to check it out. Good release from them, and yeah, fun show from Adult Swim. I usually like their programming, and this is a good one for the collection. And now for something completely different, from the vulgarity of Robot Chicken to the wholesomeness from Lionsgate of the best Christmas pageant ever. So if anyone just kind of looks just kind of quickly at this movie, they might have a preconceived notion of what this is, and that like maybe it's just kind of like a schmaltzy kind of like throwaway effort. But this actually ended up being one of my favorite movies of last year. Not just one of my favorite Christmas movies. This is one of my favorite movies. I really, really liked what this did. And it's especially helped out. It stars one of my favorites, Judy Greer here, and Pete Holmes as her husband. I won't get too far into it, but basically what this is, it kind of has kind of like a nostalgic, almost like a Christmas story-esque reflection about the childhood of like a family, in which one year when the church Christmas play was going to be held, the kind of bad kids around town, there's like a family that's always getting into trouble. They kind of like immerse themselves into the church because they think they're going to get free food, and they end up getting tied up into being in the Christmas play, and they kind of start against the wishes of most of the town, who kind of just have written these kids off and just think that they're no good. The character played by Judy Greer is kind of like directing all of this, and she, while trying to get rid of the kids at the onset, eventually comes to kind of like start kind of actually teaching them. And it's really a story about like not discarding people, and actually trying to help people, and doing like how people, if they're just kind of given a little bit of attention and support and everything, they can potentially flourish in a way that like if you're just kind of overlooked and not kind of neglected on an emotional level, it might cause you to act out and do. And yes, this can sound kind of schmaltzy, but how it is executed is not kind of super cloying or anything. It's actually, there's a lot of really funny stuff in there. The child performances are amazing, and just this really has a good heart, but it's also very funny and very sharp, and just I was so blown away by how much I like this movie. We are in kind of the spooky season right now, so it's not quite prime time for Christmas movie watching. But if you're getting ready for later this year, the best Christmas pageant ever will be coming out soon, and is very much worth checking out. Don't overlook it, just maybe because you have like some thoughts about what it can be. It is actually a legitimately really good movie, and I quite enjoyed it. And if you want something that really the whole family can watch and appreciate, I love this movie, and I'm really glad that it's finally getting a Blu-ray release, because it came out last year, and I guess they held it off for this holiday season, which they don't always do, but glad to finally be getting this on Blu-ray. It's worth the wait because it looks really great. Brand new movie, high definition transfer, looks fantastic. Dolby Atmos track. While it is more of a kind of just a contained like community drama comedy, it's immersive when it needs to be, when there's a little bit of chaos with like the kids causing just destruction and stuff. It engages the high channels and everything, but it's not like a action-packed movie, but it does what it needs to. But it looks great, sounds great with the Dolby Atmos track. You do get some special features, including a commentary track. You get some featurettes, you get deleted scenes, you get bloopers, a really nice selection of supplements for a really great movie. Best Christmas pageant ever. Give it a chance. Very much worth it, and it's a really good movie. Now is when we start going to more boutique label releases, starting off with Altered Innocence and their release of Angst by August, with Zappa and Twist and Shout. So this is actually featuring two movies by the director Billy August, and Zappa and Twist and Shout. Twist and Shout is kind of like a pseudo sequel to Zappa. I on first blush didn't. I thought it was just the same character or same actor playing different characters, but I do believe this is actually Twist and Shout is a somewhat of a sequel to Zappa. Very different movie, but kind of linked. But these are two coming of age stories. Zappa, the first one, is a little bit more. It's a little darker. It's about a group of kids, like mainly focused on three main kids, in which they have kind of a little gang that they formed. Kind of one of them is which is led by a kid who is kind of been neglected by his parents. He's like always acting out, and he's kind of has a malicious streak in which he kind of like prods some of the other members to kind of do things that will kind of hurt them or will be funny, but it actually is very cruel. And it's kind of a weird, like, fascinating dynamic in which there's like these young kids are growing up, they're friends, but they also kind of like hurt one another, like emotionally or sometimes physically. And there's all kind of like stemming from other personal issues in their lives. And it can be intense, but it's very fascinating, and it kept my attention the whole time. And just like all these young actors, they work very well. And that kind of translates over to Twist and Shout, which it's a little bit more lighthearted, but there are definitely some intense themes that are going on here, because you have like what seems to be one of the main characters from Zappa, continuing on, has some different friends, but it's about him and kind of young love, and how he's kind of like positioned to be with one girl. It's kind of like known by everyone that he's going to be with this one girl, but then he meets another girl who he ends up kind of falling in love with and starting a relationship with. But then that kind of gets a little bit out of hand, and there's other characters in there who have like their own domestic issues and negligent parents and all kinds of stuff going on. So a lot of familiar territory in terms of like coming of age, like hallmarks, but it's executed very well by Billy August. And the way these movies are presented, they don't try to gloss over kind of the more kind of tragic elements of these stories or the harsher elements of these stories. Everything's treated with like sincerity but realism, and overall I think it works very well for these movies, and I actually end up really loving both of these. Even though a little bit different tonally, like I said, Zappa's a little bit darker, but both are quite entertaining. And so I'm really glad that Altered Innocence brought these both into my life. They've been given new HD transfers, and they look really nice. I didn't notice any major dust or scratches or anything, maybe small things here and there, but overall these have been cleaned up very well. They have some supplements, including some interviews and a visual essay and stuff. So nice package, nice transfers, everything very good in terms of if you like coming of age films, worth checking out from Altered Innocence. I think everything's handled pretty sensitively and quite entertainingly. So Angst by August, Zappa, and Twist and Shout, definitely worth checking out. My next film from MVD Entertainment, we have Weeds with Nick Nolte, which is a movie that whenever I was watching it, I was reminded a lot of the A24 movie I talked about earlier this year, Sing Sing, because it involves people in prison, like putting on plays and stuff. But in this movie, the prisoners get out, and most of the movie it involves like these ex-cons going around performing this play that our main character, played by Nick Nolte, wrote while he was in prison, and kind of getting to know him and how the play develops while they're on the road and how everyone adapts to their freedom. And yeah, it's fairly interesting. It's directed by John Hancock, who did Let's Scare Jessica to Death, Bang the Drum Slowly, that from Cinematograph that I've talked about. Both of those I've actually talked about from Vinegar Syndrome. This is kind of the least of those movies that I've talked about. It's very tonally erratic. I was always intrigued by where the story was going, but there was times where certain characters would do things that kind of seem totally out of place, or developments would happen that you're just like, oh, okay, like it just the mixture between kind of the uh, sentimentality of like the rehabilitation of these characters through drama and performance and stuff, mixed with the realities of their situation, of them being criminals and how they what situations they get into. It's very entertaining, but overall it's a bit of a messy movie. And I had mixed feelings on it by the end. I think it's still worth watching if you're interested. Just kind of a imperfect movie. I will say that a large part of this movie does take place around the holidays. So if you're like me and you like to kind of like save certain movies for, even if they're non-Christmas movies, for the holidays, just be aware of that. But the movie itself, I thought it was pretty good. The MVP of this movie is actually Ernie Hudson, who gives a really, really amazing performance here. So if you're an Ernie Hudson fan, definitely check out Weeds. In terms of the presentation, this has been given a 2K restoration from some film elements. So what I take that phrase to mean is that this was probably from a film print, or if not, I don't know what happened, because this is not a very good looking movie despite this 2K remaster. Very soft. The colors are super erratic at times and just off. So I'm not really I think a little bit more care could have been taken to get a little bit more from this source. If they did not have a better source, I guess I'm glad that this got released in any form. But if you want this to be a really gorgeous looking movie, this is not it. It's a very erratic, like the movie Imperfect Transfer, especially with the various color swings and just like the overall soft, kind of damaged appearance. Audio wise, it holds up a little bit better, but there are some variances here and there. You do get some special features, including some interview with the director and a short film and stuff. So there was some care put into this. I just wish the video quality was a little bit better. Really wild movie, but Weeds worth checking out probably at least once to see where you fall on it. Not a great movie, but an interesting one. Next up, we have from Radiance Films, one of my favorite labels. I'm going to butcher this title, Malpertuis. So I believe this is a Dutch film, because they speak, they speak Dutch, so that makes sense. But this is a film that it's really fascinating. Mostly, probably famously, is that Orson Welles is in it. And are surrounded by these Dutch performers. And in the main version of the film, he is dubbed over. There's an alternate cut of this film that played at Cannes that has his original voice, if you want to check that out. But this movie, it was a really up and down experience watching this movie, because honestly, it doesn't really start cooking until like 50 minutes into the movie. It's a little over 2 hours long, but it takes you a long time to get to the real meat of things, of what is happening, and what is mostly like what this main drive of this narrative is Orson Welles plays like this leader of this family who is basically on his deathbed. He has created a living will, and that in the event of his death, he's very wealthy, but whenever he passes, there basically everyone is given a stake in his will, but they will only be able to get it if they stay in this house, the titular Malpertuis. And they have to stay in there and forever. And if they ever leave, like, they forfeit their part of the will. And it'll basically comes down to like whoever is left standing will get this fortune. It can be like a man and a woman, and if they like reach the end, like they will have to wed and be together and stuff. So it's a really interesting kind of dynamic where a lot of these characters aren't really sure what to make of this at points, and there's some scheming and stuff. People start meeting their fates, so it's kind of like a little bit creepy and everything, and things really start popping off in like the last 30 minutes. Which is when I really started to be like, okay, now I'm getting into it and stuff. And then there's like a final reveal that I found fascinating. And it makes me want to revisit the movie with that context of what is revealed. So while it did take me quite a long while to really get interested in this movie and what it was doing, I overall landed positively by the end, but it is a very slow road to get there. So give it, if you get this movie, give it some time. It might take a while to really get going, but there's some interesting things once you do, if you're willing to give it that time. But this movie overall, it's a little bit creepy, a little bit kind of gothic-y, but overall very interesting. And Radiance has done a nice job once again for this one. They've given it a nice restoration. It's a 4K restoration from the original elements. Looks really great. Film grain hasn't been left intact. Everything looks really, really nice. Really, really nice restoration. They always do a good job. There are some good special features, including a commentary track, some interviews, a documentary, the can version of the film that's much shorter, and it's not been restored, but you can watch that alternate version of the film, and there's some short films and stuff. So overall, Radiance Films, another stellar release. Even when I don't completely love the movie itself, their releases are always great. And this one I can definitely see growing on me. So check this one out if it sounds interesting to you. A little creepy, a little gothic, and just definitely off the wall. If that sounds something you're interested in, check out Malpertuis. And now I'm going to go down a hallway of Kino Lorber titles, starting with Kino Classics release of Agnieszka Holland's Angry Harvest. This is set during World War II era. This was nominated for Best International Film back in the day, about a man who's a Polish farmer who finds a woman, a Jewish woman, who she has a family that she is separated from, and he kind of finds her in the woods, and she's unwell. He kind of takes her to hide her away and nurse her back to health, and then he kind of keeps her in his basement to hide her from the kind of local like Nazis and stuff like that. But it's kind of like has like a sinister undercurrent where he is helping this woman who lives in his basement, but he is also kind of like fighting these like sexual urges that like are internal, and he tries to keep them at bay, but he's also starting to really fall for this woman and really like want to be with her. But then she is kind of like going back and forth between like trying to like fearing for her own safety and wanting to stay away from the Nazis, and fearing for her safety from this man, and how that kind of like their dynamic evolves and stuff over the course of this narrative. And this movie is quite a gut punch at times, but always really, really interesting, and I think handled in a very sensitive way by Agnieszka Holland, where other like male directors may have like been more exploitative with some of the developments. Agnieszka, I think she handled things in an interesting way. Overall, good looking release for this one that's been restored. And it looks good, but there are still occasional lines that haven't been cleaned up, like vertical lines and stuff, that you will notice and can go on for like a reel or so. So not completely like spotless, but overall a pretty decent restoration. You do get a commentary track with this. So if you're interested in international cinema from a little bit back in the day, I believe this was an 80s movie. Make sure to check out Angry Harvest. Sticking in the wartime era, going back to the First World War, we have King and Country. This one is in conjunction with Studio Canal here. And this one's really, it's a really strong anti-war tale. The main thrust of this is about a soldier who one day he decides to like take a walk, just take a walk because he's just kind of been cooped up and everything. And he is picked up while he's on this walk and kind of charged as being a deserter. And so that thus sets off like this bureaucratic nightmare where he's being put on trial and potentially going to be put to death. And he gets appointed a defender, who at first is kind of doesn't think much of this soldier, but then he starts to really sympathize for him and really realizes that he did not mean any harm. And it really starts to kind of break down what this defender thinks about what like the military and stuff that he's in, where something like there's like kind of no leeway for people, like the rules can be so rigid that it can really punish the wrong people, and how it's a really interesting kind of way to approach anti-war sentiments, and overall it is very effective, and quite heartbreaking at times. So King Country was a good discovery. It has been preserved quite well by Studio Canal. It's not listed as being from a new restoration, but it has to have been kind of spruced up by Studio Canal. I believe this was this was probably from a 4K scan of the original 35mm camera negative, and it holds up quite well. Really beautiful restoration, and the audio is solid as well. You get a commentary track and some interviews. Overall, King and Country, very much worth checking out if you like wartime tales, especially anti-war tales. King and Country's worth the time. Sticking in the same general area with regards to like war and conflict and stuff, we have Ernest Hemingway's adaptation For Whom the Bell Tolls with Gary Cooper and Ingrid Bergman. So this, based on his classic novel, and it's an epic in which Gary Cooper plays a man who is helping Spanish freedom fighters fight fascism, and he ends up falling in love with Ingrid Bergman's character, but there's a lot of scenes of like planning and just characters getting to know one another and bonding, and it's a lot of rich text within a very dense movie. This is 2 hours and 46 minutes long. This is the roadshow version, so you have overtures and intermissions and stuff like that. But it's a really interesting movie, mostly because the star power of Gary Cooper and Ingrid Bergman and their screen presence with one another. It draws the eye for sure. It is, for the material, it is a little bit overly long for my particular taste. I did kind of my interest started to wane in certain stretches, but overall it is a good movie, and I think very much worth checking out for fans of either performer. This has been given a 4K scan from the UCLA Film Elements. Overall, this is a pretty solid scan. It still seems a little bit soft to me, probably due to the conditions of the original Elements. But overall, it does seem to be a good 4K restoration. This has been given a commentary track, and then a theatrical trailer. So if you are interested in this, I believe it was released previously on Blu-ray, but this is a new restoration, and it does look quite nice. Maybe not perfect just because of what is available to restore, but overall it is a good release for whom the bell tolls. I got a couple of releases from producer Dan Curtis. I've talked about his late night mystery set on a recent episode. Now we are back with Classic Monsters. So this is a set of 3 films, which includes adaptations of Dracula, Frankenstein, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So the first disc, which is Bram Stoker's Dracula, that is a movie that is actually shot on film, and I think is probably the standout of the set. The other 2 movies, so we have Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, those were shot on videotape, so they have been up-resed from the original videotape elements. So I talked about this on the Late Night Mystery set, but this is kind of the only way to present these movies, and they are not going to look beautiful by any stretch of the imagination, but they have been preserved as well as possible given the limitations of the way they were captured. So overall, the movies themselves, they're decent. They're not like the best adaptations of any of these monsters by any stretch of the imagination, but they're entertaining, especially with Jack Palance in the lead of 2 of the roles, and the Frankenstein, you have Bo Svensson. Yeah, definitely worth it for Jack Palance. And if you like these classic monsters, just any adaptations, it's just interesting to see how the material is malleable and just kind of like goes in different directions. But the Dracula was probably my favorite, maybe because it was shot on film, but either way, I think they're all interesting. So yeah, the Dracula looks pretty solid. The other 2 I said like I mentioned, they look as good as they possibly can. There are a good number of special features. Each movie gets a commentary track. I believe Frankenstein actually gets 2 commentary tracks. So for a total of 4 commentary tracks across these 3 films, you get introductions from a film historian, and you get some interviews and stuff. So if you like Dan Curtis's stuff, who like one of the minds behind Dark Shadows, this classic monster set is pretty decent. One that I liked even a little bit more, this is just a single film, but this is Dan Curtis's Dead of Night. This is an anthology film, and this pretty much just felt like an episode of like Night Gallery, which I don't hate. You had like Ed Begley Jr. in the first segment with like he's like the owner of a car that gets in kind of to like a time warp kind of situation that ends on an interesting note. You got a kind of a vampire tale, and then a final tale of like a mother resurrecting her child and things going awry. That was my favorite. I really liked the last segment entitled Bobby. It's definitely worth the price of admission. And overall, I did enjoy this. So if you like stuff like Twilight Zone or Night Gallery or Outer Limits or something, I think you would like Dead of Night. And luckily, this was shot on film. This wasn't captured on videotape, so it looks really good as well. There is a television pilot on here that's called A Darkness of Blade On, that is presented on videotape, but the Dead of Night itself is captured on film. So fun time, really enjoyed that, kind of like a good spooky addition to the season. And in addition to that pilot that I talked about, you get like a commentary track, an introduction, some deleted material. Overall, I did like Dead of Night, and it's good if you like kind of like a decently entertaining anthology film. Keeping on the Kino train, from Richard Stanley, we have Dust Devil, which is kind of a horror thriller about basically like a Demon on Earth. This is the reversible cover art. You can reverse it to have this slipcover art as well. Kind of like a demon on Earth who's going around killing people, and who he has kind of like a code that he follows, but basically he's going around killing people and kind of like trying to track down victims and stuff. And there's like a series of like different demons and stuff on Earth, and there's some people that kind of know like the legend of these kind of figures and stuff that are kind of trying to track down like was ostensibly a serial killer. But the movie itself, I found it a little bit taxing. I found it hard to get into, and I found it'll be a little bit boring for a large stretch of it. There are interesting moments, and I think Robert John Burke, as our main character, our like malicious character, he has a good screen presence, and I usually enjoy him when I see him and stuff. But the movie itself, it was decent in points, but overall, very kind of circuitous and didn't really like deliver a lot of like intrigue that really kept me on my toes. And I did watch for my main watch the longer director's cut version, which is the one I am told is better. There is the shorter theatrical version, which if people say it's worse, I probably won't spend much time with that one. But overall, I know a lot of people have been interested in this one. Didn't really quite hit for me. But I was glad my watch was a 4K watch of it, because you do get either the director's cut or the theatrical. Both of those have been restored in 4K. And this has been from the 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative. And overall, they look quite good. There are some things you would expect from Kino, like the compression could be a little bit better. But the master overall is pretty solid. Maybe a few specs here and there that didn't get caught by the restoration gauntlet, but overall it's good. I think if you aren't a hardcore fan of this one, you can probably get by with this Kino release in terms of the picture quality. If you want the absolute best for this, I'd probably suggest, I believe Umbrella is releasing a 4K of this, and it's being encoded by Fidelity and Motion. So I'm sure that will have an immaculate compression suite. But if you want something that, if you don't want to import, this 4K release, it's decent. And you get a commentary track, some interviews and storyboards and stuff. So can't say I loved the movie. There were things I thought was interesting, but overall, Dust Devil, it's fine, just not my bag completely. Now the next movie, it isn't good, but I found it very entertaining and like just like a ridiculous way. From Kino Lorber and I believe Dark Force Entertainment, we have The X with Yancey Butler and Susie Amos, and this dude who is ridiculous, Nick Mancuso. So this movie just starts out just like right in the middle of it. Like, it's about a man who was married previously to this woman played by Yancey Butler, and she is cuckoo bananas. She's like crazy from the very beginning of the movie, and the main character development of this is this woman is crazy. She is trying to get back in his life. She is manipulative, and she will do whatever to try to kind of like just do crazy things to blow up his life and everything. And for a maddening amount of time, Susie Amos, his new wife, who he has a child with, does not even know that this woman even existed. Like, she did not know her husband had been married before. So there's a lot of just like contrivances and stuff with this woman. It's like so soapy, so ridiculous, but it's very entertaining in kind of like a campy way. So I enjoyed it, but it's ridiculous. And Yancey Butler is acting her ass off. She's hilarious. She's ridiculous, but the screenplay is ridiculous, so she's leaning into it. But if you just want a simple, like, woman who is crazy doing crazy things to, like, blow up a family, The X, it'll get the job done. Also, it's a Christmas movie. Um, uh, the disc itself, it has been remastered in HD. It looks pretty good. There's a few small like lines and stuff here and there, but overall it looks pretty solid. You do get some interviews and stuff, and the master has been approved by the director. So if you like kind of trashy dramas, The X, it's a good trashy. It's ridiculous, but entertaining. Next one up, we have a 4K from director William Friedkin, and that is his movie Rampage, which is definitely not one of his most lauded in his filmography, but I found it entertaining enough, about a man who goes kind of like on an indiscriminate killing spree, and then has to face trial for his carnage that he has inflicted, and kind of how that unfolds. And so it's like part serial killer drama, part courtroom drama. We have Michael Biehn all at the center of this. And overall, very fast. I like courtroom dramas, so that really helped me. There's some kind of stomach churning stuff going on with some of the kills early on in the movie, and just kind of dealing with the nature of evil and why people do what they do and all that kind of stuff. I found it interesting enough. Not a perfect movie by any means, and even some of William Friedkin's more trashier movies like Jade and stuff, I like that a little bit more, but overall, I found it interesting enough. There are two different versions of this movie that are quite different from one another. You had the original version, and you have the recut version. So the original version has been given a 4K scan from the original camera negative, and then the recut version has been given a 4K scan from the interpositive. Both of those are presented in 4K in Dolby Vision, and they look pretty decent for having two movies on a disc, and it being Kino and not being the best at compression. Definitely some shortcomings. Could be better with like a more competent encode, but it does a decent job, and everything. The restorations look pretty good. No major damage lingering. Everything's been treated pretty well, and I think if you're a William Friedkin fan and you want to be a completionist, this is a pretty decent release. You do get a commentary track and some interviews. So overall, not the best known Friedkin movie, but worth a watch. Rampage. Just a few more, going to a more modern Kino Lorber movie. We have Souleymane's Story. This is a really interesting and engaging kind of a migrant drama, in which you have a character who is trying to seek asylum, and this is really kind of like focusing on the days leading up to his hearing, where he has to kind of like perfect what he is going to say to this person who basically holds his life in their hands, and all kind of the things that he has to face in those days leading up that can be very tense and very taxing to his well-being. And it's just goes to show you like how like stressful the whole asylum, immigration, that type of process is, and it's very effective. I think this one is a very good movie, very under the radar, but worth checking out if it sounds interesting to you at all. Brand new movie, so HD transfer looks great. Not pretty much nothing in the way of special features besides a trailer, but if you just want a really good international drama, Souleymane's Story, very much worth checking out. Going back to another complete series set from Warner Brothers, we have the HBO drama The Newsroom, the complete series, and I gotta bless Warner Brothers for, it's probably just because they had a lower number of discs, but having this in a Blu-ray case instead of a DVD size case, love them for it. So you have all 3 seasons of the Newsroom. They have all been released previously on Blu-ray. They are just been re-released all in one set for the first time. And this is especially important because I owned the Newsroom previously, but I had an incomplete collection. For many years, I had the first season, and then the second and third season went out of print. I found the second season for a price that I was willing to pay used, but I never really found that for the third season. So luckily, I could forego that process altogether and now have all 3 seasons in shelf-friendly Blu-ray packaging all in once. This is an Aaron Sorkin drama, so that means that things are very exaggerated. They are very on the nose, but they are very written, but in a way that I find fascinating. Yes, this story about a news station who are reporting on real life events that happened in our reality and reporting on them and what was going on behind the scenes, what was going on, like how they approached reporting this from an idealistic standpoint. It's very preachy, but it's Aaron Sorkin, so I kind of like his version of preachy. It's ridiculous, but there are moments that are really, really interesting, and I think it's an entertaining show, even with its faults. It's not The West Wing, but it is Aaron Sorkin working in a mode that even when he's like not completely hitting the mark, it's usually at least entertaining still. So glad to finally get that elusive third season on Blu-ray for me, but just to have all of them. If you're a fan of Aaron Sorkin's heightened sense of writing, the Newsroom is worth checking out. And to have this on physical media is really great. Like I said, all 3 seasons, only 25 episodes, so it wouldn't be an intense binge if you decided to check it out. You get some commentary tracks and inside the episodes, or pretty much every episode, some deleted scenes, some roundtable discussions, good number of special features. This show that didn't make it beyond 3 seasons, but it definitely caused a conversation while it was around. Sometimes it was people making fun of it, but even then, at least you're talking about it. So Newsroom can be ridiculous, but it can also be a lot of fun. And finally, from Warner Brothers, we have a set that I know a lot of people are really excited about. That is the Peanuts Ultimate TV Special Collection. Now, this includes almost all of the Peanuts television specials. This has 40 of them. Some were not able to be included because they are owned by Paramount. Some, I believe, are owned by Apple. And then there are some specials that I think are not considered exactly a TV special, and they are like more so considered like part of this other program where like that delves into like the history of America and stuff. There's like a Thanksgiving offshoot that I know that like maybe like about pilgrims or something that will probably be released separately at some point. But for now, we got these 40 specials. And we've got this booklet here. But a lot of these specials, they never have been released on Blu-ray. A lot of them have been missing in action for a long time. And it's good to have, like, the Peanuts are very special to me. And so I was glad to have this release. It's imperfect release, but I'm very glad to own it. And so as you may have seen, like you have like the major stuff like the Great Pumpkin and Charlie Brown Christmas and stuff, the stuff that everyone knows. But then you got like some deep cuts like What a Nightmare, Charlie Brown, You're a Good Sport, Charlie Brown. You have stuff with Arbor Day. We have just like stuff with like different sports things, New Year's, Snoopy's Reunion, It's Christmas Time Again, Charlie Brown, Short Summer, a lot of stuff going on here. And not all of them are like amazing, but it's Peanuts, so it's still good. And especially a lot of the earlier ones I consider classics. the way that Peanuts has been released on physical media over the years has been very tricky. It's been hard to get all of them in order or just in good quality. And what you do get things in order, you get things in mostly good quality here. Out of the 40s, like shorts or specials, you get about 34 are in really good to great quality. There are some that are admittedly from poorer elements, just because either the elements no longer exist from what they can find in the vaults to remaster things properly, or the way they were animated in the first place only allows for them to try to upscale it in a way that isn't always pleasing. It's kind of similar to what I was talking about with the Dan Curtis stuff, where they were upscaling stuff from like videotape to HD. It's not quite that, but you may have seen certain like Scooby-Doo, like digital ink and paint movies, like in the Hanna-Barbera set from earlier this year, that whenever you watch them, you know it's not true HD because of the source, but they tried to upscale it as good as possible. These aren't handled as well as those Warner Archive sets, but they're handled as good as possible. But some of these, like, there's a good like handful of specials that aren't going to look particularly great, or they can look downright bad. And mostly you can forgive that due to the conditions of the original material and stuff. But then there are a few things that we are questioning in terms of what Warner put out. Like there's Charlie Brown's Celebration. I know that one, a lot of people have pointed out that there is a version of this on Apple TV that it looks like an actual HD master compared to what we have on the disc, which doesn't look particularly great. So we are hoping, if we let Warner know, that they will do a replacement disc. I know there's also at least a line in one of the shorts where like the last line is omitted in the audio track when it's been available elsewhere. So hopefully that's something, like small little things that hopefully can get corrected. They're not a deal breaker, but it's just frustrating whenever small errors are noticed or big errors are noticed. And you kind of like have to wonder if they are going to be addressed or not. One of the other disappointing things, it's not exactly an error, but it's just a misjudgment, is that these are all 5.1 tracks, whenever I think most fans would have preferred the original mono tracks. They don't sound horrible, but they can sound like a little bit extra echoey in a way that's not really necessary. But visually, most of the shorts look really, really great. Mostly have not been hit with DNR. Some are a little too cleaned up, but overall look good. The 5.1 tracks, like I said, are a little bit echoey at times, but they're not terrible. They could just, but mono would be better. No special features have been carried over, so no special features. So if you have some older sets that do have supplements, make sure to hold on to those if those are important to you, because this doesn't include any. What you will get here are just 40 entertaining shorts in mostly really good quality, and handled pretty well. But glad to have this. Not a perfect set, but for Peanuts fans, I think they'll be mostly pleased with this. A lot of great content on here. So if you can find a good deal on this, definitely make sure to pick it up. I think it's what a lot of us have been waiting for. Wish it could be perfect, but not quite perfect, but still very entertaining. So from Warner Brothers, this Peanuts Ultimate TV Special Collection, still worth checking out. And that is my show. I hope you have found something that you are interested in checking out. If so, please leave a comment. Let me know what you're going to add to your collection or check out. Make sure you share this with anyone that also loves physical media. Always love getting new people into the show. Thank you for those who tune in every week. I really appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed to the Geek Vibes Nation YouTube channel. Make sure you like the video. It does help. I really like anyone who supports the show. Very, very much appreciate you. I will be back again next week with another fresh batch of movies. But until then, enjoy these movies.
Why didn't you just tell them who I was, huh? Is it because I don't exist in your life? You were never married before, and you were never arrested for trying to kill me, were you?
I feel that you're a danger to yourself and others.
Come on, do it!
You are not going to wreck my life again.
I strongly advise you to have no further contact with her whatsoever.